Wanna talk? So let's talk. Yeah. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk, you wanna talk.
Welcome, everyone. It's Talk to Solomon time. We're delighted to have as our guest my friend Dr. Alan Tues. Alan, how are you tonight? Do we have Alan? Alan, can you hear me? Now I hear your laugh. You must be there.
Hello.
No,
Yeah.
you're here.
Hello?
There we go.
Yeah,
There
I
he
hear
is.
you. I hear you. We got you.
Okay.
Alan, please say
Yes,
hello.
I'm good. I'm doing okay, Stas. How are you?
Good. Please say hello to Chief Steve and to Brent Johnson.
Hi, Chief Brent. How are you?
Great.
Doing fine. Alan, I'm trying to get in touch with you, by the way. Check your messages.
Well, I can't do much checking right now because I have no phone and no internet service in the house and no electricity and no civilization. So, sometime around, they say, they've been telling us by the 6th of July we'll get our power back here.
Wow.
But until then, we're kind of camping out.
Yeah, and by the way, I just wanted to announce as our top news story, Eastern U.S. storms cut power. Well, I think Alan can report firsthand it's an absolutely true story.
Well, it sure seems to be around here. Actually, I just going around and driving around and looking, especially the very first day when you got up on Saturday, we've had hurricanes brush by here and other things like this. I don't remember seeing downed trees and so forth all over the place. I mean, everywhere you look, as extensively as this particular storm. I'm not sure what the significance of that is, but it has been very interesting, the depth of the outage everywhere. And they've been working to bring it back, but in our immediate area, I think it started out, there were something like 600 families in our immediate area that were without power. And we're among the remaining 300 that they haven't brought back online yet, according to PEPCO.
Now, let me ask you a question, Alan. If this country, the strongest, the mightiest, the most technically advanced, the best infrastructured country on the globe, can't recover from a quote-unquote storm, because it wasn't a tornado, it wasn't a hurricane, it can't recover for a storm in our nation's capital for this period of time, what does that say about our vulnerability?
Well, I guess I am one of those people I've been following for the last several years. Articles, some of them in scientific journals, meteorological things, talking about the fact that it's precisely the sophistication of our present society that makes it more vulnerable to certain things than we would have been in the past. And I'm not saying that what we're going through is an instance necessarily, but for instance, this is supposed to be, or have been, or we're going through, coming out, I'm not quite sure whether we're at the beginning or the tail end, of a time of solar activity. And that solar activity would have had very little effect on civilizations in 1860 or 1865. But it could now devastate ours because we're so dependent on things that are electronic and that will be affected by electromagnetic storms and other kinds of things. And I think that this kind of an episode related to the weather is just an example of what we could look forward to. We think that we've got so much going for us in terms of this technology, but in fact it also makes ordinary folks more vulnerable because we are far more hooked into things that leave us with less self-sufficiency, I think, than any people have ever had before in the history of the world, at least in terms of our normal habits. I think if we were in a prolonged situation like this, of course, we would relearn or put into practice once again the kind of things that allow us to survive. But our day-to-day mentality is very dependent on things that can disappear in an instant.
Well, you got that right. Now, let me get the panel involved. Brent, question or comment?
Yeah, I think everything Alan is saying is correct. However, there are two elements here. Number one, first and foremost, it's an act of God. It's just a reminder that God is more powerful than anything that we can do. I'm sure everyone would agree with that. But there's another element involved here, and that is what I call the stupidification of the American people. And I remember when I was in New Zealand a couple of years ago, I walked into a store where they had already turned off the lights. They were closing. And I was about to walk out, and they asked me what I wanted, and I told them, and they got it, and they wrote down on a piece of paper how much it cost and would enter it into the system on Monday morning when they reopened. And I paid for it, and I walked out. That would never happen in America. In America, you walk and they say, I'm sorry, we're closed, the computer's down, there's nothing I can do. So I think you have a whole culture now in this current generation that just doesn't know how to address problems. And so it takes longer to fix things than it used to take because people are just not as intelligent, as adept at doing the work necessary, whatever it is. There are some who can, but most people, I think, are just incompetent or incapable or just unwilling to do the necessary work to make things right in a faster period of time. So I think when you put that into the mix, it's part of the reason why it's taking so long to recover from all this. And if I was a conspiracy theorist, I'd say Alan's one of the 300 remaining because it's Alan Keyes. They don't want him to have his power back.
Well said. In fact, that reminds me of the story of King Solomon when he was asked to tell the difference between a group of children who were all dressed exactly alike, their haircuts were exactly the same, and they said which ones are boys and which ones are girls. And so he had each one doused with a bucket of water. And the girls knew to pick up the hems of their dresses and wipe their faces. The boys just stood there and drip dried. He says, that's the girls and that's the boys. Do you remember that story, Dr. Keyes?
You can't say that I do that. It's a good point, though. I would have to deny the suggestion, however, that I've been singled out in any way. The kind of power they want to keep from me is of a very different variety, I think.
and they certainly wouldn't let you be on the Talk to Solomon show with the likes of Brent Johnson and Chief Steve. Chief?
Well, I think the most dangerous part of this story is that there's actually human beings that believe that human beings can control the weather. And the second part is if Dr. Keyes would have got an electric car like somebody said, this would have never happened.
Right, right. And then, of course, he'd have a dead car because he'd have no way to charge it. All right, let us move to Governor Scott of Florida, Governor Jindal of Louisiana, among others, who have said to the government, no, we're not going to institute Obamacare. We don't care what the hell you say. Your thoughts, Alan?
Well, Stan, I think we really have come to the crunch at which what is really going on is starting to dawn on people all over the country, including folks in the states and governors and others. Our constitutional system is being overthrown. And I think this last decision by the court on Obamacare is a good example. I know that there are some people, and I consider them, to tell you the honest truth, quite pathetic, who are trying to pretend that Justice Roberts, with this tax thing, going along with this tax power thing, was doing something shrewd and all of that. They're missing the point. A government is allowed to do certain kinds of takings, right? Taxes happen to be among the takings that government can do. But, like every other power of government, those powers of government are specified in and limited to purposes consistent with the Constitution of the United States. They can't just do whatever they want. And so if you decide on the one hand that what they want to do is not constitutional, and then decide on the other that because it's a tax they can do it anyway, are you then telling us that they can impose taxes and force us to accept penalties because they have told us to do X and we haven't done it, and therefore they want to punish us? And by punishing us through the taking that's called taxes, they can impose a punishment that's inconsistent with the Constitution? Do you realize what they've done here? They've actually invented a loophole in constitutionalism that you could drive every possible form of totalitarian dictate through that loophole. So that all they have to do is say, okay, you must do X, and if you can't show proof that you've done X, then we're going to take from you X, Y, in amount of money. And it could be small amount, large amount. It could leave you with some, destroy you completely, but it's going to be a punishment. That's coercion. And so we're saying, oh, if you call it a tax, then you can use this coercion in order to force us to do what we have the constitutional right not to do? Wake up, people. If they can call it a tax and inflict on you a punishment for not following their unconstitutional dictates just because they called it a tax, then they have invented the instrument that turns the Constitution into a dead letter, and they already have the forces, the IRS, that are going to enforce it against you, which already operate on the basis of a presumption of guilt that is contrary to our entire legal system. Wake up. This is not some clever maneuver for political purposes on the part of that wonderful Justice Roberts that was appointed by Bush. This is the collusion of an elitist faction that has just shown us the vehicle and the instruments they intend to use utterly to crush the liberty of this country. And we better wake up and smell the fumes that are rising now off of what could be the corpse of our Constitution.
Again, it's well said, and you did not hear perhaps Brent just enunciate what's on the minds of all patriotic Americans, and that is, when is that line crossed? When does that time come? Now, look, if you decide, if Stan Solomon decides, I'm going to take on whatever form of government, local, state, or federal, it's an exercise in stupidity. But when the American people rise up and millions of people take to the streets, I'm not saying with guns, and government realizes it ain't going to happen. No one's going to pay the tax. No one's going to obey the rules. No one's going to support, and no one's going to allow politicians, no matter how elitist they are, no matter how rich they are, no matter what they think of themselves, and Obama thinks he's hot stuff, they're nothing but majorettes. And if they don't stay in front of the parade, they're irrelevant. In fact, they may get run over. Brent?
Yeah, now, the basic problem with what you've said, Stan, is that the government doesn't care what the people say. They will take from the source what they want. They will take from the people and from the people's property what they want. There is a solution here, by the way. There is a solution. Okay, personally, me, Brent Johnson, I own nothing. I am a pauper. Everything that I have, that I use, is owned by non-regulated artificial entities. And the issue here is, if the American people got smart, they would do the type of thing that I have done, which is they would take whatever property they have, put them into non-regulated, unincorporated contractual organizations or pure trusts. They would take their money, they would put it into foundations so that they would still have control over the property, but they would not be able to have that property attached when they refuse to pay the tax. Then the government has no way to enforce its will, and then such a civil disobedience type revolution can indeed be very successful. So there are avenues that people have in terms of dealing with it. The only thing you can't do is what you have been doing. You can't continue to go along the way you've gone along for however many years or decades and expect that, well, I'm just going to say no, I'm not going to pay it. You know, that's not going to work by itself, because the IRS is charged with administering this, and you know the IRS, they'll come in and they'll take whatever you have in order to satisfy their thievery.
Can I intervene for a second?
Yes, please.
Because I think that in some ways that may or may not have been true of a situation in which what they're taking is from people who are isolated and so forth. What we're now seeing is something that essentially changes the fundamental assumption of life for all Americans. It already changed, by the way, and I pointed this out with respect to the income tax. We act like we're free people, right? We say we're a free people, the brave and the free and all this. And I always tell people we're not a free people, we're a people on parole. And if we don't report to our parole officer every April the 15th, then they will come and take our livelihood and take our houses and take whatever we own and so forth and so on, because we're obliged to report. And we're obliged to report contrary to the Constitution, which says that we cannot be compelled to provide testimony, that is, affirmed statements against ourselves that can then be used in order to take us to a court of law and say that we're guilty of some crime. That's exactly what I said a minute ago, though. They want to say the taxing power is unlimited because they have already gotten away with trampling on the Constitution when it comes to the imposition of the income tax, which uses a system of administration that is contrary to the Constitution, since it basically is a system of coercion used to compel people to testify against themselves, which is contrary to the plain language of the Constitution. So now they're taking that in.
But Alan, I don't.
And they're
I
saying, let's apply
I don't
this to all
report.
government.
Leave me alone.
There will be no protected entities. They will put laws on the books that force every protected entity to do what they're told. And then they will call the penalty that is imposed on it a tax. It's basically like calling the fines we get for driving our cars a little over the speed limit. That's a tax. And they can say that if you can't show proof that you followed our dictate, that you bought the insurance, that you bought the health food, that you bought this and done that, then we're going to take and take and take until you've got no more. We're not free people if that happens. We're guilty until we have followed their dictatorial mandates and can get evidence as a result that we have followed those mandates. That's a dictatorship. That's not a constitutional system of any kind whatsoever. And if you think there are loopholes, it's only a matter of time before the same mentality which has thrown the Constitution out will end those loopholes. Because once you allow a lawless a power like this to exist in any hands in the government, that will become the whole character of the government.
All right, I want to move to some other topics, although this is fascinating, and hopefully people will, the whole idea of the show is to give you information, folks. You do with it what you choose, but we're hoping you'll choose, you know, America first. Fireworks show was canceled because people said it was affecting the birds, that the noise was affecting the birds. I don't know those birds unless they're Democrats, but the reality is that this is the kind of poppycock, this is the kind of, you know, absolute absurdity that they find a rationale to undo what we have done, are doing, want to do, and to make us then, next thing you know, we'll have to adopt a bird or we'll be taxed, or adopt an animal or be taxed. It's exactly what you're saying, Alan. It doesn't make any difference what's right or wrong, legal or illegal, allowed or not allowed. If once you give them the authority, they simply do whatever they want. That doesn't work, they just shoot you. Alan?
Oh, I didn't know you wanted a response from me, but sadly, I think that's the mentality we've unleashed on ourselves, Stan, and it's happened supposedly gradually in this way and that, but now it's coming to a head. I think we are now confronted with the reality that forces who want to practice this kind of despotic, tyrannical government that throws off the cords and boundaries of constitutional government, they are now in the ascendant. And I would like to point out to people that in terms of Obamacare and other things, there were two decisions made in the last week or so, both of which had to do with constitutional liberty, constitutional prerogatives and power. One was the Arizona decision, right? And the other was the Obamacare decision. In both these decisions, an appointee of a supposedly Republican, supposedly conservative, supposedly Constitution-respecting member of the GOP, etc., that individual sided with the lawless, totalitarian-minded socialist majority that basically wants to throw the Constitution out the window and say there is no constraint on what government can do and nobody can resist their power, whatever, not the states, not the individuals, nobody. I think it's time we woke up and realized that that mentality is now pervasive in a part of the whole, what I call, elite faction, that these parties are colluding in it in various ways, and that people must wake up and look for those opportunities they might have to take back the sovereign power and control that the people are supposed to have. Because this party system has betrayed us into the hands of the enemies of liberty.
Well said. Chief?
Well, going back to the bird fireworks story, I always try to think about what is the real agenda here. And so I tend to think with this story that the left has found a way to put the dampers on an Independence Day celebration. Since they hate America and they hate our independence, they talk about birds, but that's not really the issue here. The issue is let's stop a celebration about freedom.
Well said. By the way, you'll be happy to know and comforted that according to the United States government, scientific agency, there is no evidence that mermaids exist. Now, I am so relieved. No, I'm disappointed. No, I mean, what the hell are they doing with our money? No mermaids? I'm sure Hillary is crushed because with a face like that, she should have been a fish. All right. There was an attempt by some Muslims, it doesn't say that in the story, but it's fact, to hijack a plane. 6 of them sprang up on this plane, they had canes, and they broke the canes or had them pre-sawed, so they used them as weapons. A little bit of a problem. The passengers on the planes overwhelmed them and beat them to death. And when the plane landed, they said, that garbage, they screwed up. I'll start with you, Brent. I like that. I think that should be standard operating procedure if someone tries to hijack a plane. Your thoughts?
Well, first off, I think that standard operating procedure is arm the pilots. Real simple. Arm the pilots, okay, and frankly, arm the citizenry, but arm the pilots at the very, very least. The story to which you are referring, I am not aware of the details on it, so I can't speak with any great intelligence on it. But if indeed what you just described happened, more power to the passengers. I think it's time for people to take, a lot of you aren't going to like this, take the law back into your own hands. We're supposed to be the sovereigns. That means we're the rulers. That means the law belongs to us. We have delegated to others certain powers to execute our laws on our behalf. Since the delegated ones have failed in their duties miserably, I think it's time for the people to take back the law into their own hands. Now, at the same time, I do not think, that I'm not out there promoting people going crazy and nuts. And there is a framework of paranoia that is being encouraged among the American people. And from that can come people reacting suddenly to things that are not threats. And that can create all kinds of chaos and problems. There's got to be a balance between the two. But if indeed the events occurred the way you actually just described them, Stan, then more power to the people for taking the law into their own hands where it rightfully belongs.
Chief?
Well, this is not an American airline, but again, to this date, the TSA, the Transportation Safety Administration, has identified or captured 0 terrorists. They're charging us billions of dollars for service to harass us and harass our families at airports, but they have caught no terrorists yet. Everyone, including this incident here, has been captured in flight by the passengers.
Love it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Dr. Alan Keyes, one of America's brightest, most patriotic, most incisive, and most, well, what is the right word?
Patriotic.
Well, patriotic,
American.
yes, but...
Smart. Brilliant.
Yeah, smart,
Great
yes.
freedom lover. Freedom lover.
All right, and I haven't mentioned good looking, have I? Okay, we'll be right back.
Without power.
Without power. That's why he's on the phone, because I don't think we want to look at him at this particular moment. Be right back. This is Talk to Solomon. Hey folks, This is Stan Solomon, and I talk to smart people all the time. I've got one of the smartest people around on how to make money from home. His name is Ted Williams, and Ted, well, it's a tough economy out there.
It is, but if you've got the right vehicle and some good advice, you can make it even in this economy.
All right. Well, how can you make money in this economy if you don't have money already?
Well, I tell people right now that in this economy, there are really two businesses that I would say work good times, bad times. And the first one costs several $1 million to get involved in, and that's necessity food. You know, you go to the grocery store, people are going to eat. It doesn't matter. We're going to do that. But can you imagine or think for a minute, what is the other business that everybody's involved in?
Well, let me think for just a minute. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody lives based on a cell phone. In fact, I don't know anyone that doesn't have one, but cell phone business is expensive to get into.
Well, it is if you're buying a brick and mortar store and you want to tie yourself to a conventional business, have inventory, overhead, theft, all the stuff that goes with it, and then you have an opportunity with our business opportunity to for under $300 to be able to operate in 50 states and all the U.S. territories and soon to be international.
Now wait a minute, is this one of those deals where you can only talk between 8:15 and 8:22 at night on Tuesdays?
No, this is actually running on one of the nation's largest nationwide networks, and we even have roaming for those people that are traveling between major highways, and we have the top-of-the-line phones. We've got some of the best Android phones, the newest Android phones that have come out on the market, as well as some simple flip phones for people that's all they want to do is talk.
Now, how does the fee for this service compare with the major companies?
Well, right now, if you get all of the service and you use a lot of internet or a lot of data, you can easily spend $150 a month. In fact, some of the companies that are advertising unlimited data are actually giving you unlimited data, but the first gig is high speed, then they slow it down to 56K, you can't even use it. It's unlimited, but you can't use it. With ours, it's truly unlimited talk, text, and web, and the great thing with us, you can develop a business and earn free service for the rest of your life.
Can you earn more than free service? That saves you $100, $150 a month, but that's only the start, right?
Obviously, there's a lot of income opportunity if you want to treat it as a real business. And you know, at under $300 to get started, we have a fast start program for our representatives where they can recoup their investment in their first month if they just are serious. We also have a unique feature. Knowing what we're talking about, if you had a friend and you're not a representative, but you are earning free cell phone service, wouldn't you tell your friends about it?
Especially if it would help me to keep that free service.
Well, what we have is a program where you can refer a few friends, even if you're not a representative. You could be a customer, and you refer a few friends or family members that get our service. That would earn you free service. So our representatives can get it as well as our customers.
So you're saying with a national competitive company, you have the ability to give unlimited, true unlimited service with the latest and greatest phones or less if that's what you want, and that not only can you have free service, but all your customers can have free service by referring people, and I assume if they're your customers, then you make some override, right?
Absolutely. You can actually have a network of representatives that you're earning overrides on, as well as their customers, and you benefiting financially from that. So it's big money at a low cost and low investment, and all the tax advantages of being self-employed and write your own schedule.
This is not a brand new company that just trying this out. This is a proven, publicly traded, high-quality company?
Yeah, they've been in the telecom industry for over 18 years. And, you know, just having money will not get you in the wholesale cell phone game. There's 3 or 4 companies that dominate, and they won't give up any of their share with someone with no experience. Our company has been involved in data billing, customer service in the telecom industry for years and years, and we were the first in the market at the wholesale level.
Folks, this is an exciting opportunity, maybe for you. We can't tell you what's right or wrong. There's a phone number you can call, 800-299-8362, or you can go to cpnlive.com and click on the icon that says make money from home, and all the information will be there. Ted, thanks so much.